All across the United States, in these quiet little towns and even big bustling cities, there are stories that they don't add up. Events so strange, so chilling, they become the stuff of legend. These are the unsolved mysteries that leave us with way more questions than answers. So let's dive into some of the country's most mind-bending secrets.
We're talking about families who literally vanish into thin air, crimes that completely change the way we live our lives. These aren't just spooky stories. They're real events that happened to real people, and they left behind this trail of just baffling clues and lingering doubts. It really makes you wonder, what mysteries might be hiding just around the corner from you?
All right, so here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to journey through 4 different kinds of American mysteries. We'll start with people who disappeared, then move to events that totally defy logic, then question some cases where justice feels, well, incomplete. And finally, we'll see how modern science is cracking codes that have been cold for decades.
So our first stop is maybe the most unsettling category of them all. Cases where people just disappear. The whole investigation starts not with a piece of evidence, but with a void, an empty space where a life used to be.
So, let me introduce you to the Jameson family, Bobby, Sherilyn, and their little 6-year-old daughter, Madison. Back in 2009, they drove out into the Oklahoma mountains. The story goes they were looking to buy a 40-acre plot of land, to live off-grid. They were never seen alive again. And this is where the story gets so strange. The clues left behind make no sense. Their truck was found abandoned a few days later, but it clearly wasn't a robbery. Inside were their wallets, their IDs, their phones, and get this, $32,000 in cash just sitting there. The only living thing was their dog, who was severely malnourished. Police also found this bizarre, rambling 11-page letter from Sherilyn to Bobby, and a handgun she was known to have packed was just gone. For 4 whole years, the case was completely cold. Then, in 2013, some hunters just stumbled upon their skeletal remains only a few miles from the truck, and the scene was just chilling. The bodies of Bobby, Sherilyn, and little Madison were found lying face down, side by side, almost like they'd been arranged. The cause of death? They could never figure it out, leaving their final moments an absolute, total mystery. Another really haunting case is that of Maura Murray. She was a nursing student who crashed her car in New Hampshire back in 2004. A local bus driver actually stopped and spoke with her, but when the police showed up just minutes later, she was gone. But maybe the most chilling clue of all is a voicemail left on her fiancé's phone the next day. He said he couldn't hear a voice, just what sounded like someone breathing.
Okay, so from people who disappear, we're going to pivot to places. Places where reality itself seems to break down. We're stepping into a realm where the evidence doesn't just confuse you, it seems to defy the laws of nature. These are the cases that really push the boundaries of what you think is possible.
So check this one out. In 1941, the Hackler family farmhouse in Odin, Indiana, became the center of something truly bizarre. It all started with a tiny fire on a strip of wallpaper. But then, more fires just started breaking out. A book started burning from the inside out. A mattress just burst into flames. The most baffling part of it all, the house had no electricity. By the end of one day, firefighters had been called out for 28 separate, spontaneous fires. The family ended up sleeping outside before just tearing the whole house down. Now, fast forward 46 years, and another home becomes the scene of an event that is just inexplicable. In 1987, an elderly couple, William and Minnie Winston, woke up to find their Atlanta home spattered with what looked like blood. And we're not talking a few drops. It was on the floors, the walls, and even down in the crawl space.
And here's where the mystery just goes off the rails. The police confirmed it was human blood, specifically type O. The problem? The Winstons were both type A. There was no sign of a break-in, no body, no one was injured, the doors were locked. It was like the house itself had just started bleeding. The case was eventually just dropped because, well, technically, no crime had been committed.
Okay, sometimes an investigation actually leads to an arrest or even a confession. But what happens when that so-called resolution just feels hollow? When it leaves behind this huge wake of doubt and a feeling that the real story is still out there, untold? 7. That's the number of people who died in the Chicago area back in 1982, all connected by one single everyday item. This was the Tylenol murders, a crime that sent an absolute shockwave of panic across the entire nation.
Someone, and we still don't know who or why, walked into multiple stores, took bottles of Tylenol off the shelves, laced the capsules with potassium cyanide, and then just put them back. A 12-year-old girl was the very first victim. This act of terror basically invented a whole new category of crime: product tampering. It completely shattered the public's trust in the safety of things we buy every day. And it's the reason that today, pretty much every product you buy has a safety seal on it. And yet, after this massive investigation, no one has ever been charged with those 7 murders. The killer was never, ever caught.
In that same vein, the case of the Boston Strangler is just wrapped in doubt. A man named Albert DeSalvo, he confessed to the 13 murders that terrorized the city in the early 60s. But his confession? It was full of inconsistencies. He was never even formally charged with the stranglings. Now, the killings did stop after his arrest, but to this day, a lot of investigators and historians think he might not have been the killer, or at least not the only one. But here's the thing, not all mysteries are destined to stay unsolved. In our final section, we're going to look at how these incredible advances in science are literally reaching back in time, giving us answers to questions that have been cold for over 100 years.
Okay, get this timeline. In 1916, an outlaw named Joseph Henry Lovelace escapes from jail in Idaho after murdering his wife, and he just vanishes. Poof. Gone. 63 years later, in 1979, a family exploring a cave finds a headless torso. And then, finally, in 2019, over 100 years after he disappeared, DNA technology identifies the remains. It was Lovelace. Science solved a century-old murder mystery. Just incredible.
But maybe one of the most infamous modern cold cases is the Golden State Killer. This guy terrorized California in the 70s and 80s. The scale of his crimes was just staggering. At least 13 murders, more than 50 assaults, and over 100 burglaries. All of it committed by this same man all across the state. For more than 40 years, he was a ghost. A total monster who just slipped through the cracks of every single investigation, leaving this trail of terror and grief without a name or a face. The breakthrough finally came from this revolutionary new technique, forensic genealogy. What investigators did was they uploaded the killer's DNA from a crime scene to a public genealogy website, like the ones you'd use to build a family tree. It didn't find him, but it found his distant relatives. And from there, they literally built a family tree that led them right to his front door. And just like that, after 4 long decades, the ghost had a name: Joseph James DeAngelo. And in a final, absolutely shocking twist, he was a grandfather and a former police officer, just living this quiet life in a Sacramento suburb. The reign of terror was finally over. And this all brings us to a final, really fascinating thought. The line between a permanent mystery and a solved case is getting thinner and thinner every single day. As our technology evolves, secrets that have been buried for generations might finally see the light of day. So the question isn't just about what we don't know, but what we're about to find out.